Well, hello there, and welcome to the Dana Spencer Show, where we talk about solving problems, building relationships, quitting corporate, and the freedom to walk in our God given purpose. So, how are we feeling out there? I hope you are feeling amazing. You've got the activity of your limbs. This is the day that the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And I'm super glad today because I have an amazing guest here with me today. So let's give a warm The Dana Spencer Show welcome to Miss Val Whiting. Woo! Welcome to the show, Val. Thank you so much for being with us. How are we feeling today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I know you are a busy lady, so we are just going to jump right into the show. So tell us, as a little girl, what was it that you wanted to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be two things. I wanted to, at the same time, I wanted to be a doctor and I wanted to be a hairdresser.
A doctor and a hairdresser. So did you have one of those Barbie dolls where they just had the headstand and you played with their hair?
Yeah, I was constantly giving my dolls like hair weaves and stuff, but stapling it to their scalp. Uh, and then I was also making prosthetic limbs for my dolls as well.
Oh, that is so cool. So both of your careers right there together.
Yes.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So what was the reality?
The reality, I mean, I ended up going to college and was pre med at Stanford and got into medical schools and I was going to go into med school, but I decided to play professional basketball instead. So I almost got there.
Okay. All right. So let's just back it up just a little bit. So you would play at what was the high school level like for you playing basketball?
I played in Delaware at a school called Ursuline Academy. It was all girls Catholic school, and it was a pretty small school. Like my graduating class is only 52 girls, and so but we were pretty dominant. Regardless of the size of our school, we won 4 state championships, and then I was all American my junior and my senior year in high school, and player of the year. And I think my senior year was the first year they had the Gatorade Player of the Year, so I was a Gatorade Player of the Year that year as well. So yeah, high school was pretty dominant, used to winning. Never really cracked the national rankings. I was always checking USA Today you know, every time the national high school rankings came out to see if we even got an honorable mention, but that never happened. But and especially being from a small school in Delaware. But that was my high school career. It was pretty, like I said, dominant. We won championships, won our conference, and surprised a lot of people.
Yeah. Oh man, that is so incredible. So you're just a winner. Like winning is just in your spirit, right? Just winning all the time.
Yeah, I didn't get started playing basketball until 7th grade, and it was by accident, and which is why I know that I believe in Romans 8:28, all things work together for good for those who love the Lord. And I tried out for cheerleading because I was getting bullied in middle school. I thought if I become a cheerleader, I'd be one of the cool people, and the bullies would stop. Well, I didn't make the cheerleading squad, and I was also tall. I was about 6 feet tall in the 7th grade. And then my math teacher said, "Why don't you come out for basketball?" And so that's how I got started playing basketball. I had the disappointment of not making the cheerleading squad, and then I turned over into another door open for me to play basketball. So that's how I got started. And of course, I wasn't good, and I used to actually score for the other team. Like you switch halftime and you switch baskets. For some reason, that was confusing to me, and I would still shoot at the wrong basket. I would even have wide open layups and shoot over the backboard. I was horrendous. I was actually so bad in high school. A coach said that I would never be a good basketball player. So, and I didn't hear that quote until many years later. So I'm glad I didn't hear that because I probably would have been discouraged. But that's how I looked in my early years as a player.
Wow. And you said something really critical that I don't want us to overlook. You didn't make the cheerleading squad, but you pivoted to basketball and you were able to, over time, be successful. So what did practice look like for you? Because we're going to get into your accomplishments, but at seventh grade, you're over 6 foot and you're just now handling a basketball. So what did that routine look like for you in terms of trying to get better at this sport?
Well, it looked like my dad waking me up like 6 a.m. On Saturday mornings to go out to the basketball outdoor courts and to work on my game. And I hated it. But he would make me get up and I would go. And eventually he would actually have me even playing against grown men, which was even harder, not playing against, not being a new basketball player and playing against these guys. It was a crazy experience for me, but it made me a lot tougher as a basketball player, playing against guys who were, more skilled and obviously more athletically and stronger than I was. But that's what it looked like. Just my dad taking me to the court and working on my game. He had me running through. They have agility ladders now, but those, how football players, you set the tires up and you run through them. He had me running through those to work on my footwork and stuff because I was actually really clumsy because I was so tall for my age and I would fall a lot. So he would have me working on those kind of drills as well. Probably some stuff they shouldn't have, like walking around ankle weights. I don't know if that's good now, but then it seemed like a good idea. So he was always a visionary in terms of like how he saw me as a player. I think he saw me as great before I became great.
Yes, I love the persistence in your dad in making you play basketball. So when did the transition happen? Because obviously to get to your level, you have to at some point transition to enjoying the game, I would think. So when did that transition happen to, oh my goodness, my dad is making me get up again to practice and to, hey, I want to practice and I want to be great?
I think it was when I went to my first basketball camp. Um, I went to it back then. You could go to camps where college coaches would come and watch you play, watch you go through skills and drills, and see you not just playing games, but how you work and your work ethic and everything. And so after one of those camps, I got a letter from Princeton University saying they were interested in me coming to play for them. And that is how I got motivated to, wow, someone thinks I'm good. I can do this in college. And after that, I took off. The next year, I was like all state and first team all state and was dominant in my position.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what year were you when you went to that camp?
It was after my freshman year in high
Okay, so
school.
around sophomore year. Okay, okay. So then now people are starting to recognize you. You're starting to really get into the game. Now you're a senior in high school. What was the recruiting? What did that look like?
Well, recruiting started like my sophomore year with when I got that letter from from Princeton, and then I started playing on an AAU team, and that's when you travel around and coaches see you and stuff. And then I started getting recruited by pretty much every school in the country. I had like a giant trash bag full of letters. I don't know what they do now if kids still get letters in the mail, but back then that's how it was. And back then there were really no restrictions. They could call you as much as you want during the week. Um, it, they can write you as much as they wanted to. So I was constantly getting bombarded with phone calls from coaches about wanting to come to their school. And so I narrowed it down. Actually, I had all these coaches coming to my house for a home visit because I couldn't say no my senior year. And then I finally narrowed it down to 3 teams, University of Iowa, Stanford, and Virginia. And those are the 3 schools that I visited. And then, but I only really visited Iowa because Vivian Stringer was the coach there, and out of respect, I went there but I didn't really want to go there because all I saw was corn when I got off the plane. I mean, not when I was driving. We were driving to University of Iowa, but seeing Stanford's campus just really sold me. And plus, I knew Stanford had a good pre-med program, and I had a fascination with going to school in California. So it was an easy choice for me.
Awesome. And I'm sorry, where did you grow up?
Wilmington, Delaware. I'm originally from New Jersey, but um, we moved to Delaware when I was 8 years old. Where are you located?
I'm actually in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, okay. I've been there. I was there last July for a huge AAU girls tournament.
Awesome. Wow. That's so cool. And so, what was it like going to school in California? Because I've never been to California, but no, I have been to California once. But what was that like going to school in the big California?
Well, first of all, it's crazy because it had a giant earthquake my freshman year, like one of the biggest earthquakes ever. So that was craziness. Walking into my dorm room and seeing the bookshelves moving side to side, and it felt like a train was passing by. Because at my grandmom's house in South Jersey, when a train passes by, you can feel it, but there were no train tracks. So that was crazy being in an earthquake. But being in California was amazing because it's always sunny. The weather is nice. Where I live now in Seattle, it's constantly raining and gloomy. So I really, really miss living in Northern California. But yeah, a lot of different things I never experienced, like in the East Coast. Never had real Mexican food before until I moved to California. Never had sourdough bread. I know it's simple until I moved to California. So and it's a very health conscious state as well.
Awesome. So then, I mean, you would go on to Stanford, and you all went to what, three Final Fours, and then end up winning two national championships.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
some people never even make it to the Final Four, obviously, never even win one championship, but to win two championships is incredible. What was that experience like for you?
Well, honestly, I thought it was normal because we won my first year as a freshman. So I was like, oh, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. You go to Final Four and you win a championship. And and we had leaders on our team that were working towards that, and we were talking about it like it was something that was supposed to happen. We had Stanford has a strong swimming program. They win championships and they have Olympians on their team and all that stuff. And so the head, I can't remember, it was the head men's coach or women's swimming coach, came to talk to us my freshman year in the locker room before we went out to practice. Tara will always have other people come and talk to the team to motivate and inspire besides herself. And so he came in and he said, if you want to be a national champion, you got to get comfortable with it. And so that was our motto that whole season: get comfortable with it, get comfortable with being a champion. When you're comfortable being a champion, your whole outlook changes. How you practice changes. How you eat changes. Like everything just changes. How you play games, how you prepare for games changes. So I think that speech was a catalyst to us winning the championship that year, my first year.
Yeah, I love that. So just like championship was just who you are. Wow, that's incredible. And so you had an amazing time there at Stanford. What one moment like really stood out for you in terms of, man, this is really incredible.
It probably had to be my junior year. University of Tennessee came to play us in our gym at Maples, and they were the defending national champions. They won last year, and we had a sellout crowd, and we were down 13 with, I think it was a minute and a half left, and our fans were actually leaving because it looked like we were going to lose. Like they were leaving, and had just gotten fouled, and I was on a foul line. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna get my points. We lose them, I'm gonna get my average. And so I made some free throws, and then we got some stops, and then turn around, we're like down one with I don't know, 10 seconds to go. I can't remember if it was overtime. I don't know. Anyway, it was 10 seconds or 5 seconds to go. We call a timeout. The play is to get the ball to me. Actually in a huddle, I visualized myself actually making that shot, and came out same exact play. I mean, the shot that I had in my head. They passed the ball at the elbow, the high post, nothing but net, and then we ended up winning the game. And the game was so exciting that somebody actually had like a heart attack. He survived, but that's how exciting the game was. So the people who left, they probably felt like jerks, but that's like, I remember that game more than even more than winning the national championship that year was coming back against University of Tennessee.
Yes, I look at those people too, like you're gonna be mad when they come back and win. Like I don't like it when people leave early because what are you telling to the players? You're like giving up
Yeah.
on other people. What are some of the life lessons that you've learned from sports and especially from that experience in and of itself?
Well, I just remember being on the foul line and looking up and seeing people just walking out, you know, and I guess the life lesson there is, basically continue to bet on yourself. Never give up on yourself, even if others are giving up on you. And it's really easy, especially in this day and age, to think about what people are saying about you, what people are thinking about you, and not standing firm on what you think of yourself or what God says about you. And yeah, I never thought about that life lesson until you asked me the question. But yeah, that's definitely something that I learned. And when you're in sports and you're in the midst of it, you don't really think about the lessons that you've learned until years later. At least for me. Maybe I'm just slow. At least for me, I don't think about it until years later.
Right. Because there's so many life lessons with sports. And then just in terms of, I'm glad you say that. Now I really will be like not leaving games because I feel like you're giving a message to the players. And how were you able to, even though you saw people leaving and giving up on you, how were you able to still, like, so just wanting to get your average just help motivate you to continue on and press forward?
It kind of put me in the moment. Like I didn't think about. So what I do for a living now, I work with athletes and teaching mindset. I'm finishing my master's in sports psychology, and so a lot of the talks that I have with athletes are about staying in the moment. So when I said I'm just gonna get my points, which is really selfish to say, but it kind of put me in the moment. I didn't think about the outcome. I didn't think about what had just happened. I stayed right in that moment, and I don't know, just things just started happening for us, and we ended up winning that game and coming back. I know Tennessee is probably mad about that, kicking themselves.
Like we had this game. How did we let them come back on us? Mindset is one of my favorite topics. And it actually is the first chapter of my book, but that's a whole nother story. But so in terms of mindset, what are some top things that you teach athletes in terms of how they need to take control of their mindset? I know I think about even in basketball games. Well, let's use the example of, we're just coming off of the NCAA championships and the difficulty of just being those star players. And oh my goodness, her having her hand in front of her face while she was playing. I mean, it was so aggressive. What mindset tips do you have for athletes out there who are not able to score because of opposition?
Well, I think a lot of the biggest thing, not the biggest thing. No, actually, the biggest thing is becoming aware, becoming self aware. A lot of us as athletes, we are not aware of how our mind, our mental game is affecting us. We're not aware that maybe our self talk is not where it should be. So we're not talking to ourselves as if we talk to ourselves like we're our worst enemy instead of our best friends. So athletes will, they miss a shot. Oh, you suck. You should have made that instead of, hey, let's get it next time. Good try. Also, athletes aren't compassionate enough to themselves. There's literally scientific studies, psych studies about how self-compassion can help with performance. And people think that's being soft. That's not being soft. It's how why would you not have compassion to yourself if you are not playing as well as you should? How do you pick yourself up? How do you talk to yourself? And also another thing is staying in the moment. Some people call it mindfulness. It's just not thinking about the next, not thinking about. I use the term stay in one time zone. Don't be in the next the future time zone. Don't be in the past. Stay in one time zone when you're playing, And so you're constantly in the moment. You're constantly thinking about what's happening right here and now, and not projecting to what's going to happen, because it's really hard for your brain to concentrate on the future, past, and present, and perform at the same time. So those are some tips.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And then in terms of pressure, I was just thinking about just the championship game, since that's so prevalent in our minds, the pressure on athletes. What are some tips as far as you've been in those situations, you played in championship games. How are you able to deal with the weight of the championship on your shoulders?
One way that I talk about is playing carefree, and that's when you're carefree, you're not attached to the outcome. That's another way of staying in the moment. I know it's easier said than done, but when you're carefree, your body is looser, your brain, you're sharper. You're not focusing on the outcome. Each shot, each moment is in itself. Any mistakes that have been made, they're past, because when athletes, you have to have amnesia, sports amnesia when you play, short-term memory. So playing carefree is a way to get rid of that pressure, that feeling of pressure.
And I think we can utilize that in our lives, in terms of always feeling like we have the weight of the world on our shoulders. And to your point, like, just relax. Like, God's got us. Like, stop being so, allowing that pressure to be on yourself, when just go out there and play your game.
Yeah, you've done it 100 times. You've taken thousands of shots. Trust your skills. Trust the work that you've done, and just go out there and play, and control what you can control, and that's your attitude and your effort.
And that's good. And so, shout outs to Coach Don Staley for being the first Black female woman to win 3 national championships. Like, right now, she's just dominating. So, how is she able to dominate the game from a coaching perspective? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my theory, and maybe it's not just my theory, but point guards. I always thought point guards make the best coaches. She was a point guard, and point guards are the second coach on the court, the floor general, when they play. So that's one thing. So she's a point guard, and she's used to seeing the whole game from every position, and used to leading. So secondly, she's a player's coach. How she relates to her players, how her players talk about her, they would run through a brick wall for her. You can just tell that. And you can also tell that she cares about them as people. And that's not always the case with coaches. You feel like your coach cares about you as a person, besides what you can do for them on the basketball court. So that's 2 reasons why I think she's successful. And she's been coached by some of the best coaches in the business as well. So I'm sure she's learned from them as well, and has had mentors. I'm going to assume, because you can't do this by yourself. You have to constantly, like for me, I'm constantly picking somebody's brain about how to be a better mental performance coach. I know she's probably doing the same thing, picking, at least early in her career, picking people's brains of how to do things better. But Dawn is one of one. I consider her, a friend. We keep in touch via social media, and I'm always giving her, congratulation messages and everything, and supporting her. And we're contemporaries, and I'm really happy, how great she's doing. It's just, I don't know, it just makes me proud. Because we also used to play with each other in high school and AAU. So we
Okay.
go way back. Yeah.
Okay, so you all played on the same team or against one another?
We played on the same team, and then we also played against each other in college. And then for USA national team stuff, we play together as well.
Okay, awesome. That's so cool. And like you said, and encouraging other people. We all want to help one another to rise up, right? I'm gonna butcher that one saying that I've heard, but we have to learn to encourage one another. Why is it that people, and obviously this is your opinion, and when you talked about athletes and mindsets, and not even encouraging ourselves, why do you think that is?
You mean how? Rephrase that question again.
how we can tend to be negative toward ourselves and then other people. And so why are we so negative towards ourselves and then towards other people?
Yeah, I think the negativity towards ourselves is tends to be human nature. We're harder on ourselves than, you know, than what someone else could be. Like, if I'll give you an example, in college and in pro, you watch film, and you're watching yourself on film, and you're like, oh, I'm looking so bad. Meanwhile, no one else is really paying attention to you, because they're probably thinking, wow, I'm looking so bad as well, because we're all so hard on ourselves and self-absorbed in that, in a way. Why we're negative? I just think it's the way the world is right now, especially with social media. Um, you can post something being innocent, and someone will accuse you of being a hater, or someone will accuse you of being jealous, just for saying something nice. So it's just, I don't know why people are like that. I don't know why people um, choose a negative route instead of positive, or choose a sarcastic or cynical route. It's sad, and the crazy part is it's starting at a younger age as well.
Yes. So in terms of, and you mentioned social media, what, in your opinion, what are some of the positives with social media, and then what are some of the negatives from an athlete's perspective?
I think the positives are that, I mean, even say if a kid wants to get exposure and be seen, just social media is a way to then put their video out there, for coaches to see them. And a lot of coaches are on Twitter or X, for example. I mean, that's a positive. I believe one of the reasons why Caitlin Clark has gotten so big is because of social media. Um, People reposting her highlights and everything. Some people never even heard of her, never saw her play, but they saw her on social media first, and that's grown the women's game. The negativity side of it is that you feel you have to be perfect. When you see uh, Instagram posts and someone's looking, flawless, and you didn't look at yourself like, why, how is she so flawless? And I can't even get these bags under my eyes, from under my eyes. So I think that's the negative part, especially with young people, um, with social media, comparing yourself to others. And then the cyberbullying, which I've experienced personally, cyberbullying, that's definitely a negative side of things with social media. It brings people are anonymous, and they just say things that they would never say to you, you know, in real life. But on social media, people become extra brave and extra bold just to be jerks.
Right. People, people are people, right? Just mean. So in terms of coming out of college and then going pro, so what was that transition like for you?
So when I graduated from college, there was no women's basketball in the United States. So I had to go overseas and play. So I went to Italy, Israel, and Brazil. And then when I got back from Brazil, they were starting a new women's league here called the American Basketball League, or the ABL. And so I went there to that league, as well as 9 out of the 12 1996 Olympians. Like Dawn Staley went to that league as well, and Teresa Edwards, and Carla, Carla McGee, and a lot of people who are in the Hall of Fame now. And then three of the players, Rebecca Lobo, Cheryl Swoops, and Lisa Leslie, decided to not come to the ABL and wait for the WNBA to come about. And for at one time, the ABL and the WNBA existed at the same time, and we were competing. So the ABL played in the wintertime, and the WNBA played in the summertime, and then there would be commercials. Um, the WNBA would say, "We got next," and the ABL would say, "Well, we got players," because at the time the ABL actually did have more talent. And then the ABL ended up folding. We couldn't, I think it's because we couldn't get a major television contract, because the WNBA has an NBA behind it, and the league folded in 1998. And then I ended up getting drafted to the WNBA in 1999.
So what was like playing overseas, like with those different cultures? Did you research the cultures before you went overseas, or did you just jump in? Like, how did that even come about?
Probably the most research I did was buy a dictionary, like a Italian English dictionary or a Portuguese English dictionary, and then you're just thrown in there. Your teammates don't speak English. The coach doesn't speak English. Um, yeah, just thrown.
Wow.
I mean,
Whew.
I feel like now it's easier to play overseas because you got email, you got Netflix, you got streaming. Like then, I was constantly calling home on a landline to talk to my family. It wasn't, and to fill my days, I turn on the television, it's in Italian or it's in Portuguese. So it was just so, I just feel it's just so much easier to go overseas now than it was then.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So did you do any investing like with stocks or real estate or anything like that?
No, no, I didn't. I don't know much about investing. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just wondering. I was just wondering. So in terms of the name, image, and likeness, the NIL, like how I don't know much if you know much about that, but how has that changed the game in your perspective? Or is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? You can tell us some positives and some negatives, however you want to answer that.
I'm kind of in between on the NIL.
Okay.
I'm jealous in a sense that I wish that we had that when I played, and I always wonder like, what would my NIL valuation be? If I was in college right now or back then. So, but I think it's great for the athletes. What I don't like is the transfer portal.
I just wrote that down. That was my next question.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like how easy it is to leave a team and just, there's kids that play with 4 different teams in 4 years. I don't like that. But coaches, they can leave when they want to. So I mean, I see where the NCAA is coming from.
Yeah. So what are the negatives that you feel like are relations to the transfer portal?
It gives the kid an out if things aren't going as they like. I think, and also I feel it takes a lot of the power away from the coach. Maybe a coach won't coach as hard or be themselves because they feel is is this player going to leave me if I don't do what she wants or he wants. I can't imagine coaching in this day and age. And I forget how many leading scorers have left or in the transfer portal right now for women's basketball. Like there's a whole list on Twitter. They listed all these schools leading scorers or have left in the transfer portal right now. So I don't know. I think something's got to give, but yeah, we'll see.
So from a coaching standpoint, now have you coached any at all? I know you do the mindset coaching, and we'll get to that in a second. But as far as like coaching basketball, was there a time in your career that you actually coached a basketball team?
I did a little bit. Like I coached my son's teams a little bit, and then one season I coached AAU, but got traumatized because of the parents, so I didn't do that anymore. But I never really leaned into coaching because I was so into being a mom, and coaching takes your weekends and your evenings, and those are the times where I would be driving my kid to practice or making dinner for them or going to their games. So I never really took that as a career. I'm sure other women are doing it, but for me, I was not able to do both.
So tell us about your kids real quick. So then I'll have a question about how is it like having mom as a coach?
I have my youngest is 19. He plays basketball at a community college here, not too far from where I live, 3 hours from here. And then my oldest is 23, and he plays soccer for Amherst College.
So and then what was it like having a mom as a basketball coach?
I don't think he minded much. I tried to treat him like everybody else and let my assistant coach do the coaching of him, so it wouldn't be mom all the time. I have to ask him how he felt about it. We haven't had that conversation in a while because he's 19 now, but he was like 8 or 9 when I last coached him.
Yeah, my son used to hate when I would go on field trips with him because like you said, I didn't want to favor my son, so I neglected. So he was like, "Mom, no more field trips." So in terms of what's next for you, and you talked about the mindset coaching and what you're doing right now. What's next for you? Tell us about what you're doing now, and then what's next.
So what I'm doing now is I have 2 certifications in mental performance coaching, but I'm going after the main one, which is the only one recognized by the Olympic Committee or IOC International. It's called it's through ASP, which is the Association for Applied Sports Psychology, and you have to have a graduate degree to be considered, and then you have to have 400 hours of supervised training, and the graduate degree has to have certain courses. So I'm in a master's program right now, taking the required courses, and so when I have that, I will have the street cred in the eyes of other sports psychologists, and that won't be finished with that until next June. But right now, I am still using my knowledge that I got from certifications and my experience as an athlete to coach athletes in mindset, and that business is slowly growing.
Now, and I've heard in conversations that I've had with athletes and former athletes that depression is real and mental health. So, what are some tips that you would advise for athletes out there who maybe are struggling with, their mental health or even with depression and anxiety? What are some tips you would have for them?
Really get the help you need. A lot of times you don't know that you're going through depression or anxiety. Um, like I said before, being self-aware that something's going on. Are you eating less or eating more? Is your sleep pattern disrupted? Do you have less motivation to do things that you normally would do? I didn't know that had depression when I was playing until, I went to see someone, and that's a lot of people don't go to see someone until it's really extreme. So that's the biggest tip, is to get the help you need, and don't be afraid to have a therapist to talk to. And I talk to a therapist every other week, whether I'm feeling great or not. That's my appointment, to talk and work things out.
Now, you mentioned being in Seattle and not necessarily liking the weather. So what has you in Seattle?
My parents live here. They moved here like over 20 years ago, and then I moved here 2012.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Bless your heart. Because weather and sunshine is so important. Like, I love the sunshine, so I just know, and that helps with moods and things like that as well.
What's the weather like where you live?
So today it's a little bit gloomy and a little bit rainy, but for the most part, we can have nice weather, and when we go back and forth. So like, it'll be 75 degrees today, and tomorrow we can have to pull out our winter coats. So we definitely like flip flop a lot, but then we can be consistent in the summer. But when we're headed from that transition from winter into spring, it's a little rocky, and then the same transition from the fall into winter, just like crazy weird weather.
Does it snow there?
It does snow here, yes.
Oh, okay.
And we don't know how to drive, and we don't know how to react to snow. Because
that's
we
here
have,
too.
but we're no New York, or we're no place like that, so we have our struggles for sure. So in terms of what the programs that you offer, and if any athletes want to reach out to you, what do you have, websites, or how can they reach out to you?
I do have a website. It's iamcoachval.com, or they can DM me on social media at iamcoachval. And I'm always checking my DMs, and I respond. And kids reach out all the time for just advice and questions, and I'm always open.
Now, before we go, I have to remember, you said something about parents when you were coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to skip over that. In terms of helpful tips for parents, because first of all, why were parents part of an obstacle in the coaching realm?
Because they didn't want their child to be held accountable. I had a situation where um, a player would fool around on the bench and not talk, talk and not pay attention, and end up benching them as a result. And the parent didn't like that. Or if someone's not playing defense or being not playing hard, and I'm not going to play you, and parents didn't like that either. So I don't know. I just had high expectations, and it's not skill wise, high expectations in how you carry yourself as an athlete.
Yeah. And then in terms of relationships, you talked about Dawn and how her players would, run through a wall for her. How important is it to build relationships just in general, but more importantly from a coach to their athletes?
I mean, it's very important. That's a huge relationship that lasts a lifetime if your coach is someone that you feel is in your corner, and that you feel they care about you. So Dawn's players will probably call her coach for the rest of their lives. This is it's not a 4-year relationship. It's like at least a 40-year relationship.
Yeah, I love that. It's not a 4-year relationship. And that's the thing that I've even called out. Like, college is 4 years of your life, and it's a big part of it, but you still have to be able to accomplish God's plan for your life. So incredible. So, if we would put a bow on this conversation, what is it that you would want our listeners to walk away with?
Oh wow, that's a hard question. um, let's see. I want them to walk away with, well, first go read Romans 8:28 if you're not familiar with it, and then look back and see how that could have has applied to your life. Because I know everybody, there's not one person that has not applied to their life. So yeah, that would be my bow and homework assignment. Look at 8:28 and think about how God has opened and closed doors for you, but things have turned out for your good.
Oh, awesome. Well, Steve, you couldn't have put a bow on it any better than that. So, Val, thank you so much for your time today. And I definitely will put your link so that folks can reach out to you in the description. And so, in the meantime, go do your homework assignment and look up Romans 8:28. Thank you so much for joining the Dana Spencer Show. Until next time, Romans 8:28.